Potential poisoning of the ecosystem for decades. Of the top 10 worst refineries in America for toxic wastewater discharge, 8 of them are in Louisiana. The Environmental Integrity Project did the study and they released the findings. Marathon Petroleum in Garyville ranks 4th and Phillips 66 in Lake Charles 7th for the release of nickel. ExxonMobil in Baton Rouge ranks 10th. I talked with the EIP Executive Director, Eric Schaefer. What are the top reasons that you're having these findings which are not acceptable?
That's an excellent question. That was the question. That was the second question really we wanted to answer. The first was what's in this stew of wastewater, and the second was how are they regulated or limited, if at all? And we found most of them aren't. EPA wrote some industry-wide standards, as the Clean Water Act requires they do, that applied to refineries way back in the early 1980s. You have to think back to Ronald Reagan's first term. And the standards were set based on what was considered to be the best wastewater treatment methods available at that time. But even then, they only applied to a handful of pollutants.
How often are the mechanical aspects, the things that make these things run, how often are they updated?
Once every 5 years, you are required as EPA to look at whether wastewater treatment methods have moved forward and to tighten the limits if they have. And we're now 40 years past these standards. Yeah. And EPA hasn't done that once. And this isn't the only industry where that's a problem.
What kind of blowback are you getting from the companies themselves who are listed?
We're hearing, so far anyway, from Exxon in Illinois, we're in compliance with the law.
Yeah.
And, my reaction to that is, it's pretty easy to comply with standards that are 40 years old, right, and that don't apply to 90% of the pollutants that you discharge. That's a pretty low bar. And that's not really the question we looked at. We do have some information about violations at refineries, but we say in the report there are so few limits for this very large industry that the question really isn't are they complying or not, it's where are the standards? Where's Waldo?
How is there at some point somebody doing something and saying enough is enough, let's take care of this?
EPA, I think, has a responsibility to pick these old standards up and bring them up to date. If they don't, they can be sued, and people can go back to the Fifth Circuit or another court and say, will you please order EPA to comply and get these standards up to date?
And again, our thanks to Eric Schaefer for that interview.